All right, well, let me ask for the plaintiff. Are you ready to proceed to trial?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, how about the
Sorry,
defense?
could we see that so that we know what team that is? I don't even know what team that is. Ah, thank you.
And so one of our people cannot get in. If we could just like have a moment.
But code U is the plaintiff, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
And how about for the defense? Are we ready to proceed?
One moment, Your Honor. We're just trying to get a couple of our members to have cameras on and change their name.
And you are Team J, is that right?
Team J as the defense. Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, it looks like the defense is all good now.
Right. Plaintiffs, let me know when you're ready.
We're ready.
Okay, you have all your members? All right, and have you put your trial rosters in? I think they go in the chat room if I'm not mistaken.
I believe our timekeeper is going to be putting that in shortly.
Okay.
Yep, and it should be in now.
All right. A few rules. You'll hear these at least 4 times before you're done. First of all, the Colorado Bar Association may be taking photographs of the competition. By participating, you've agreed that your likenesses may be taken and used, and that's actually a good thing. You'll get your picture in with a publication that almost all lawyers go ahead and read. Do we have video recorders present who are recording this? All right. And is there anyone in the gallery here who is connected with the teams that are not competing? In other words, teams U and J. If you are not affiliated with one or the other, then you need to sign yourself off of this pursuant to the rules. There won't be any recesses allowed during the trial, except if we have a health emergency. Hopefully we won't. We did have some last year. Actually, it's the first time I've seen that in about 25 years, but if you have something that's an emergency, let us know. We'll take a break. We'll do with whatever we have to do. Let me ask our scoring panelists once again, is there any reason you feel you might be biased in judging either of these teams?
No, Your Honor, not for me.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Any disputes, this is for the teams and the coaches that arise out of this competition, have to be reported in accordance with the competition rules. Remember that compliance with the time requirements is considered part of the scoring individual performances. And with that, let me ask the plaintiffs to go ahead and introduce themselves and your witnesses as well.
My name is Cheyenne Nicely. I am an attorney.
All right, and what aspects of the trial will you be doing?
Direct examination of Dakota Weirs and cross-examination of Dr. Devin Williams, along with the closing statement.
All right. Who else, fellow attorneys?
I'm Chanel Dawson, and I will be directing Carson Durst and crossing Blake Duncourt. I will also be doing the opening.
Okay,
I'm Sophia Milner. I'm going to be directing Dr. Casey Rogers and crossing Skylar Weirs.
all right, and your witnesses?
My name is Emma Ross Kelly, and I am Dakota Weirs.
My name is Naomi Brown, and I am Carson Durst.
All right, your third witness?
Hi, I'm Ellie Anthony, and I will be Dr. Casey Rogers.
All right, and for Team J?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Braden Rowe. I will be directing Blake Doncourt, crossing Carson Durst, and conducting the closing argument.
Okay. Other attorneys for J, go ahead, speak up.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Alex Kaiser. I will be conducting the opening statement for the defense, as well as cross-examining Dr. Casey Rogers, as well as directly examining Dr. Devin Williams.
All right, and your third lawyer? Who's your third lawyer for J?
Your Honor, our third lawyer is Nathan Prentice. I can see him, and I'm just
Hello,
not
can
sure
you
if
hear
we're
me?
receiving audio. Oh, we got
Can
Nathan.
you hear
now.
me?
Apologies
Okay.
for that, Your Honor. Yes, we can hear you, Nathan.
Okay.
I am Nathan Prentice. I will be playing lawyer 2. I am directing Skylar Weirs and will be cross-examining Dakota.
All right, very well. And your witnesses?
I'm Zoe McCollum, and I will be portraying Blake Doncourt.
Hi, my name is John Keegrel, and I'll be playing Skylar Weirs.
And your third witness?
Hello, I'm Nicholas Stanless. I apologize, I was muted. I will be portraying Dr. Devin Williams.
All right, very well. So we need to swear everyone in. So first, team members, and this will include witnesses as well, if you'd raise your hand. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you're about to give will be faithful and truthful and conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
And
Yes, Your Honor.
witnesses, do you-
Yes,
Yes, Your Honor.
okay,
Yes, Your
and
Honor.
witnesses, do you promise
Yes, Your
you are about to give testimony that will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you'll not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you'll follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
Yes, Your Honor.
You can just nod your head, it'll be good enough. Okay, and gallery members, I'm not sure if we have any, including teacher and attorney coaches. If you'd raise your right hand, do you promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round? You can nod your head as well. And finally, our scoring panelists, if you'd raise your right hands, do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition? All right, very well. All right, are there any preliminary matters before we start with opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff's counsel asks that we have time at the end of the trial to do a rebuttal.
If you reserve the time, sure. If you use it all in your first closing, and you don't have any time left. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Anything from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. To start off with, we ask that the stipulated fact that both the defense and the plaintiff have agreed to be presented, or at least agreed upon.
Well, I'm sure you both have them, so we'll assume those are agreed upon unless there's any objection. And anything else?
Yes, Your Honor. Given the unique circumstances that we find ourselves in for this trial, it is requested that we show exhibits via the screen share function on Zoom.
Well, the way to do it. We do that in real court too, so. It's no longer the exception to the rule, it's the rule, so. Anything further?
Yes, Your Honor. We also request that time is stopped for objections and any technological related issues.
Well, certainly technological issues. I don't know if it's in the rules on objections or not, but I suppose if it's stipulated, we'll do that.
All right.
Ms. Dawson, do you stipulate to that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll leave it to the timekeepers to keep track of that then.
And one last thing, Your Honor. Also, given the unique circumstances that now have kind of arguably become the rules, we request permission for timekeepers to screen share exhibits that are being presented.
I thought I just ruled on that. Sure.
The previous thing ruled on was screen sharing exhibits. The question just asked by me is related to who presents the exhibits.
Doesn't matter to me, just so they get up there.
All right, thank you much, Your Honor.
Okay, Plaintiff ready with your opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you can proceed.
This is a case about a girl named Dakota Weirs who developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma from the defendant's fertilizing company, Lush Fertilizer Incorporated. The evidence will show that this company's #1 priority was making money, and you will see that this goal was at the expense of its employees and Dakota Weirs. I would like to thank the jury for taking time out of your days to help fulfill the constitutional right to a jury, listen to the evidence, and come to a decision. We would not be here today if it weren't a dispute, and I'm going to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to resolve the disputed facts. But there are several facts that are not in dispute by anyone in the courtroom. It is not disputed that the plaintiff, my client, Dakota Weirs, used the chemical Drufel while working for Hazen Landscaping Company. It is also not in dispute that this fertilizer manufactured by the defendant was in its unbaked form. Ms. Weirs has been accepted into Juilliard for piano, which is one of the greatest and prestigious performing arts schools. And it is also undisputed that as a result of having lymphoma, she could not play piano at the level she had been and could no longer attend Juilliard. It's also not in dispute that she lost the only thing that connected her to her dead grandfather. What you just heard are the facts that are not in dispute. If over the course of the trial you start to get confused, please just go back to the things that are not in dispute to help clear things up. Dakota Weirs is a 20-year-old who loves to work outdoors. She loved working in landscaping. She is also extremely good at playing piano, and she enjoys it. Lush makes fertilizer, and before using Drufo, learned about it through the research of its employees. It did not take into account all of the research. You will hear testimony and even see an email about its money-making #1 priority. But ultimately, it's manufactured its money-making fertilizer using unbaked Drufo. Lush Fertilizer Incorporated will also likely explain that Drufo will protect the planet by reducing the amount of nitrates that have been found their way into streams and lakes. This may be true, but will utilizing Drufo needlessly risk the lives of their consumers and employees? Today you'll be hearing from Dakota Weirs, Carson Durst, and our expert, Dr. Casey Rogers. From defense, you will hear Blake Duncourt, who is the CEO of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated, and experts Skylar Weirs and Dr. Devin Williams. At the end of our case, the evidence will show that Lush knew Drufo was dangerous, that its consumers, including Dakota Weirs, could, and in this case, did get very sick. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the judge will tell you the law you must use. Among other things, you will hear that it is the plaintiff's burden to prove her case, and we must do this with a standard called the preponderance of evidence. This means that it is more likely than not. You will also be instructed that if a manufacturer of a product knows or should know that a product may be harmful in any way, they should use reasonable care to warn this user. The failure to do so is negligence. The defense will likely argue that their client put a warning label on the product. This is true, but you will hear testimony that a warning label is not enough. Protective clothing and masks are recommended. It does warrant to keep the product out of contact with eyes, not with skin. They will also try to argue that Dakota had been working with other fertilizers and had been doing other things that could have caused this horrible disease. But there's one crucial difference. The other companies did not use Drufo. At the end of the case, we are going to ask you to compensate Ms. Weirs for her non-economic losses, including pain, suffering, and grief, all of which Ms. Weirs will detail during her testimony. Dakota's life had been changed forever. She used fertilizer during a job that she loved, and that fertilizer was made by Lush, who had information that it was dangerous and did not reasonably warn its consumers. Dakota spent days getting painful medical treatment just not to attend Juilliard and do the one thing that kept her close to her beloved grandfather. At the end of the trial, we, on behalf of the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs, are going to ask that you find Lush was negligent and caused Ms. Weirs injuries. Thank you for your time.
All right, very well, thank you. Defense have an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor, we do. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the case presented today is like a house. They need a concrete base to originate from. However, the plaintiff's foundation is full of holes and cracks. You may ask why this is the case. This is because the plaintiff has a duty to provide a preponderance of evidence to prove that their side is correct and not so far-fetched. The plaintiff theorizes that Dakota is suffering from their horrific form of cancer as a result of non-genetic reasons. No doubt, there are plenty of causes for lymphoma, and to determine a cause, the plaintiff looks at their nearly identical sibling, Skylar Weirs. The only difference is that Dakota worked in landscaping, and the sibling did not. This is true. There's no dispute over this. However, the plaintiffs claim that one specific chemical of one specific product out of a large number of landscaping products that Dakota worked with is the cause of this, Drufo. On the same token, the defense has to prove our side's correctness by preponderance of the evidence. The evidence is more than adequately suited for this. Today, the jury will be presented with 3 witnesses from the defense's side. To start off with, there is Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer. You will hear that he has built the company of Lush Fertilizer from the ground up and strives to make the world a better place. You will also hear Blake talk about how their company, Lush Fertilizer, took the precautions to make their products safe for the people and the environment, how their former employee, Carson Durst, is not only not the most trustworthy individual, and how Blake sympathizes with Dakota and is wishing them a safe and speedy recovery, all whilst knowing that Lush did not cause such a horrific form of cancer, and Dakota did not adequately protect himself. Next, there's Skylar Weirs, an investigative journalist who works for the Rationalist magazine. Skylar will tell you how Truffaut is an effective product that's not only good for the environment, but the company itself is ethical. They'll also point out how a landscaping company should not allow a teenager to work unprotected with other chemicals that might be harmful, unlike Lush fertilizer. Finally, there's Dr. Devin Williams, the head of research and development at the labs of Lush Fertilizer, who is quite familiar with Truffaut. Williams will explain how Truffaut works, the flaws with the plaintiff's study that blames Truffaut, and why it's exceedingly unlikely Dakota's cancer is caused by Truffaut. Through a combination of the testimonies, it'll not only be shown that Truffaut is safe, but Lush Fertilizer took the necessary precautions to ensure its safety. Furthermore, it'll be revealed that the plaintiff's case has a multitude of holes in their foundation. These holes contain everything from a witness whose only goal is revenge on Lush Fertilizer to a study that not only compares apples to oranges, but won't even be present in this courtroom today. It should be kept in mind that the plaintiff will attempt to speak of how Lush did not take necessary precautions to protect the consumer. This is untrue, yet if it were true, it would be bad for the plaintiff's side. This is because Dakota speaks of how they did not wear any type of protective equipment, despite being warned to do so from the product's packaging and the company they worked for, Haven Landscaping. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are all that can stop a safe and effective fertilizer that's beneficial for the greater good from being eradicated and replaced by a less effective equivalent. To do so, you'll need to find that Lush Fertilizer was not negligent and did not cause Dakota's cancer. Thank you much.
All right, thank you. We ready with the first witness for plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Dakota Weirs to the stand. Please state and spell your last name for the jury.
My name is Dakota Weirs, W-E-I-R-S.
And why are you in court today?
I am here today to sue Lush Fertilizer's products. Their products made me sick, and they have blatantly ignored the safety of their customers and have given me non-Hodgkin lymphoma. I just want the company to compensate me and other people who have been affected by this dangerous product.
I see. And could you tell the jury a little bit about what your life was like before you were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Of course. In my free time, I volunteered at the local homeless shelter, cooking meals and cleaning dishes, and just being involved with the less fortunate members of the community. I was an active member at school, and I was a part of the National Honor Society and my school's student government. I worked very hard to set myself apart from my classmates and get good grades. I also love to play the piano, another joy that has been taken from me.
What would you say is the most devastating thing that you've lost because of your illness?
Well, I love to play the piano, but due to my cancer, I can no longer sit at the hard piano bench for long. I started playing the piano to come close to my grandfather, but now in my condition, I can't sit there, and now it feels like I have lost my grandfather a second time.
Before you were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, what did you plan on doing with your life?
Well, after my grandfather passed, my parents put me into piano lessons, and I worked very hard, and it showed. I played in many recitals and even won some competitions. I was given a full ride scholarship to Juilliard in New York City, which was my dream. In my condition, though, I fear that I can never pursue such a career in piano.
What are some symptoms you've been dealing with?
Well, I started feeling sick all the time right before I was getting ready to leave for Juilliard. I had rapid weight loss, even though my abdomen would swell to twice its normal size. I felt fatigued, and I had chest pains and chills and enlarged lymph nodes, which could be quite painful.
Can you tell the jury why you believe that Lush Fertilizer is responsible for your illness?
Well, one day I was laying on the couch when I saw a news report about Lush and its key ingredient, Truffaut. Some documents had been leaked showing that the company had lied about the safety of their products, knowing well that Truffaut could cause non-Hodgkin lymphoma. I had worked as a landscaping technician at Haven Landscaping since I was 14. My job was to spread the fertilizer and seed since I was not old enough to work the machinery. I knew I used Lush fertilizer, so after seeing that story, I called my boss and they confirmed that I had been using Lush fertilizer. There's also non-Hodgkin lymphoma is environmental, not genetic, and me and my twin did almost the exact same activities except for my landscaping job. So if it had been from anything else, my twin Skylar should have it too.
May a member of my co-counsel please pull up Exhibit 1?
Sure.
Could co-counsel please rotate the document? Okay, as my co-counsel takes care of that, Dakota Weirs, do you recognize the document in front of you?
Yes, I do. It is the list of packaging ingredients on one of Lush Fertilizer's products that I used.
Okay. Could you read the user safety recommendations out loud for the jury?
Wait, before we get to the contents of any document, is this stipulated or do you need to get this into evidence?
I need to get this into evidence.
All right. Are you moving to do so?
Yes, I move to enter this into evidence.
Any objection or voir dire to Exhibit 1? All right, I don't hear any objection. Exhibit 1's admitted.
Great, thank you. Ms. Weirs, could you please read the user safety recommendations out loud for the jury?
Yes. As with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin. Use a respirator or N95 mask is recommended. Follow manufacturer's instructions for cleaning/maintaining personal protective equipment.
Use of a respirator or N95 face mask is recommended, however, not required. Based on this knowledge, what kind of safety precautions did you take?
I followed the rest of my, I followed everyone else who wore shorts and t-shirts, as there is no warning label that this could cause cancer.
Great. Co-counsel, you can stop sharing your screen now. Now, Dakota, do you recognize anyone in this courtroom today?
Yes, my twin Skylar.
Your sibling, who's on the opposing side. Could you please explain why you believe that they're opposing you today?
I believe that my twin is opposing me today because when medical bills started piling up for my hospital visits, my dad started shouldering those instead of their gambling debts.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any cross-examination?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you can proceed.
Dakota, you mentioned working at Haven's Landscaping, correct?
Yes.
And you mentioned you started working at the age of 14, right?
Right.
And you worked with the landscaping materials frequently.
Yes.
Your boss told you to always wear a mask while working with the chemicals, right?
He recommended it, yes.
So you also forego most of those required protections?
Can you repeat the question?
You also forego most of the required protections?
Yes.
This includes long sleeves, correct?
Correct.
Did other people do the same?
Yes.
Did the other workers get non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Not that I know of.
Did you use masks when using the fertilizer?
No.
Did you wash your protective equipment or gear after use of the fertilizer?
It does not say in my witness statement.
Did the landscaping company advise you to wash your protective gear and or equipment?
It was recommended, yes.
Then why not sue the landscaping company?
Can you repeat that?
Then why not sue the landscaping company?
I'm suing them because there is no warning of getting cancer on their packaging.
Yes, I understand why you are suing Lush Fertilizer. Why are you not suing Havens Landscaping? Moving on, you were led to believe that the fertilizer was responsible because Skylar did not get cancer, correct?
Correct.
And Skylar did not work with the fertilizer.
No, she did not.
And this leads you to believe that the fertilizer is the cause.
Yes.
Do you know, essentially, if Durfo, the main one of the products in Lush Fertilizer, is banned outside the United States?
Can you repeat that?
Do you know if Durfo, one of the main chemical ingredients in Lush Fertilizer, is banned outside of the United States?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Response?
It is relevant to the current proceedings as it draws reference to the exhibit brought up by Dakota.
How is it related to the exhibit?
It is related to the exhibit as not only does that exhibit showcase the American documentation of the fertilizer's ingredient list, but it also has quite simply
Well, I understand why that's the American label. This happened in America. Why do I care about France or anywhere else in the world?
Due to it being banned outside of the US.
It's what?
Due to the product itself and its chemical Durfo not being allowed outside of the US in its American form.
Any response to that, Ms. Nicely?
No, Your Honor.
All right. I see a small amount of relevance. I'll allow the question.
Okay. Dakota, do you know why it's banned outside of the US?
Yes, because of Drufo.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Plaintiff ready for your second witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff would like to call Carson Durst to the stand. Okay. Please state and spell your last name for the jury.
Sorry. My name is Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
And what is your current occupation?
Currently, I'm the lead product developer for Terra's Greenery.
And what is Terra's Greenery?
Terra's Greenery is a fertilizing company. It's Lush Fertilizer's biggest competitor.
And could you please explain why you're here today?
Today I'm here to testify against Lush Fertilizer. I believe that they harmed Dakota Weirs, and I want them to be held accountable for their actions.
And when did you start working at Terra's Greenery?
I began working at Terrace Greenery in 2006 after I was fired from Lush Fertilizer Incorporated.
How did you find out about Lush Fertilizer Incorporated?
I was best friends with Charles Doncourt, Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush's son. And after college, I had a tough time finding a job, and he told me that his dad might be able to pull some strings for me. So I
Your
applied.
Honor, if I may stop real quick, Blake Doncourt is female, so we will be referring to her as Miss Blake Doncourt. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Sorry.
All right, continue.
He told me that Blake, his mom, would probably pull some strings for me, so I applied for an internship at Lush.
And you said that you were best friends with Charles. Just to lay down some foundation, how did you guys know each other?
We were both on the same soccer team when we were little, so I would eat dinners with them, go to their lake house, and when we got older,
Your Honor.
What's your objection?
I understand that counsel has said that this is to lay down foundation, but I still don't see the relevance to this line of questioning.
Response?
It's just, I'm just trying to show the judge how close the two were.
All right, now, Mr. Rowe, I'm sure the defense witnesses will want to be humanized a little bit by background, who they are, where they work, where they went to school. I'll allow this overruled.
When we got older, we went to Arizona State University together.
Earlier you mentioned that Charles thought Blake could pull some strings to get you the internship at Lush Fertilizer Incorporated. Whatever happened to that internship?
I ended up getting the internship right away, and I moved up in the ranks very quickly. Within 3 months, I was promoted to a full-time position as the product developer engineer for Lush. It was rumored that the only reason I got the job was because I was close with the family, but I assure you that was not the case. I was just working at a higher level than some of the other engineers.
And what did Lush Fertilizer Incorporated have you working on with the new promotion that you received?
I was assigned to work on developing a patented bonding agent called Drufo. Lush started developing the chemical in 2001. I arrived there in 2003, and they were testing the safety of Drufo.
And could you please describe what Drufo is?
Like I mentioned earlier, Drufo is a patented bonding agent. It's what Lush Fertilizer uses in their fertilizers in its unbaked form.
And what kind of research did Lush Fertilizer Incorporated do on Drufo?
They did different in-house research studies. One of the studies that I had to do was on rats in England. I documented everything in my notebook, but I didn't really see any problems that it could have on humans at the time.
And could you describe what Lush did with your research?
Someone named Jerry Langley would check everyone's notebook on a regular basis, and then he put all this information onto a page to send to the senior manager.
And other than what you had described, what else did Lush Fertilizer Incorporated do to research the product?
So I got word from a higher up that they were doing another in-house study. This time it was on whether or not Drufo was carcinogenic or cancer-causing in humans. We then received an email that wasn't completely clear.
And was the email ever talked about?
Yes, there was one meeting about it. And it was weird because it said that internal studies had to be read a certain way.
Your Honor, can I ask co-counsel to present Exhibit 4?
Sure.
Does this email represent what was sent to you and other colleagues?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any objection or voir dire?
Your Honor, object on a fact of a lack of foundation. We understand what the email is, but not enough about the email for it to be talked about or entered into evidence.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even read who it's from or to. Maybe you could cover some basic foundation, including the date.
Okay. Who is this email from?
This was from the company. I believe it was from Jerry Langley.
Okay. And what was the date that this was sent to you on?
September 18th.
Okay. Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any further objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, exhibit will be received. Exhibit 4.
I want to direct your attention to the exhibit. Did anything strike you as abnormal based on your experience?
Management encouraged us to document the data in a form that supported their hypotheses. It was commonly known that this type of business should be worded off as certainties to give companies wiggle room in case of lawsuits similar to this one.
And I'm just going to ask you if you could read the first sentence of paragraph 2, please.
I genuinely cannot read that.
Okay.
It's like really
Your Honor, do you mind if I read it?
Well, you can read it if she has the ability to agree or disagree. That's what it says. You can ask it that way.
Okay. Co-counsel, could you please zoom in on the exhibit? Is that better?
Well,
Could you please? I'm sorry, say that again.
I could say, can you read it? Are you going to read it, or the witness?
The witness.
Depends how big her screen is.
Could you please read the second paragraph, the first sentence in paragraph 2, please?
Following our lab's June Drufo study, concerns have arisen regarding generalized findings of potential carcinogenic qualities identified in samples produced during a period earlier in the year.
Thank you. Co-counsel can stop sharing the exhibit now. Could you, after everyone, you mentioned that there was a meeting. After everyone heard this, was there anything discussed?
Yes, everyone, a part of our research team, was sat together to talk about what we found.
And what did you talk about?
That scientific research determined that Drufo was not also carcinogenic or cancer-causing to humans, but that it also might be linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Was there anything done or said about this new finding?
Yes, someone named Alex Monroe, who was sitting in the conference room at the time this was discussed, said, and I quote, "Let's keep it in the walls until we figure out what we are doing."
And could you describe what additional research Lush did based upon the conclusion relating to lymphoma in humans?
About a month or so later, a report was sat on my desk, and I quote, "On average, our statistics and distribution are below what is required by law. The mean is within 3 standard deviations from the applicable federal standards. Further analysis is required before we are able to make any conclusions regarding the likelihood of the chemical compounds at issue causing any long-term health effects, including cancer."
Was there anything in the report that suggested how to fix this?
Yes, it was said to bake Drufo so that the possibility of Drufo being carcinogenic could be eliminated.
And did Lush ever start baking Drufo to mitigate the danger?
Not that I recall.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Yes, please, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Carson. Miss Carson Durst. Do you know Blake Doncourt?
Yes.
And Miss Doncourt and her family was like the family you never had, right?
Yes.
And you started working at her company right after college?
Yes.
And this was also the only job you were able to find right out of college, right?
Yes.
And you rose through the ranks so quickly because of your relationship with the family, right?
No, I was working at a higher level than the other engineers.
Okay, but like you previously stated, you're still close enough with them to be family.
Yes.
Is it true that you worked in the research and development division of Lush Fertilizer?
Yes.
And your biggest assignment in that job was helping develop Drufo?
Yes, and testing the safety of it when I got there.
Okay, and so with Drufo, you found one English study done that showed it was a possible carcinogen for rats, right?
Yes.
So just clarifying, that was only a possibility, not a sure thing?
That was the possibility for rats. We did find it for humans.
Okay, and so like you just said, tested rats, but not humans or primates or anything closely related to humans?
I never ended up testing the humans, but I got word from the higher up that they did test on humans.
Okay, and no previous study before Lush's unearthed adverse effects in humans?
No.
And Lush did a study on if Drufo was a carcinogen in humans, right?
Yes.
And there wasn't any set in stone evidence that linked Drufo to being carcinogens?
Can you repeat that?
Was there any set in stone evidence that linked Drufo to being a carcinogen?
Not that I found, but other people, I believe, found it.
And it was just that one scientist that expressed concern then?
Yes.
So did you ever receive a copy of the study report and analysis?
No.
The study report and analysis for the Lush Fertilizer study? Okay.
Yes.
And the study report said that the product is safe enough for what the law requires?
Yes.
And it's also within the federal standards for safety, right?
Yes.
And you did not have access to the complete set of data that was analyzed by the research and development team?
I did not.
And yet you are still certain that data was left out in Lush's final report?
Yes.
After the study, you noted there was a decline in your quality of work, right?
Yes.
And you received complaints about your job performance from the company?
I did.
And you decided to take these complaints up with Miss Blake Doncourt, right?
Yes.
But Miss Doncourt told you to work out your problems with Miss Jerry Langley, the person that you had a problem with, right?
Yes.
And in Miss Doncourt pushing you to solve your own problems, you felt that she betrayed you.
I did.
And to get back at her, and I quote, to get Blake's goat, you applied to Terrace Greenery, Lush's biggest competitor.
Yes.
And you now work in Terra Greenery's research and development team?
I do.
And you went into that job after being fired by Lush Fertilizer?
Yes.
And you are also helping to develop a product for Terra that you believe outperforms Lush Fertilizer's product?
Yes.
And the only difference between the product that Lush created and the product that Terra's is making is that Lush's had Drufo, right?
Yes.
Are you aware of the confidentiality agreement you held with Lush Fertilizer?
I am.
And of how it states that you could not disclose Lush trade secrets or work for another company that you know would benefit from knowing these trade secrets?
Yes.
And you also signed the agreement?
I did.
Yet you still hired to Terrace Greenery and were hired by them?
Yes.
And you applied while you were still working at Lush?
Yes.
And in doing that, you know that you were violating this agreement, correct?
I did not know at the time. I had forgotten about it.
So looking back on it, would you say you were violating that agreement?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, very well. Thank you. Plaintiff have another witness?
The plaintiff would like to call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
All right.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the jury.
I am Dr. Casey Rogers, Rodgers.
And what school are you currently employed at?
I'm a professor at University of California, Berkeley in the horticulture and entomology department.
And what qualifications do you have to be employed at this school?
I earned my Bachelor's of Science degree in agriculture and chemistry at CSU, and I have a PhD in agriculture and entomology from UC Berkeley.
And what published research do you have relating to the topic of the case today?
I have numerous articles published on negative effects that could be harmful due to prolonged exposure of specific chemicals.
Your Honor, I would like to enter Dr. Rogers as an expert witness in entomology, agriculture, horticulture, and chemistry.
Any objection or voir dire?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense requests to voir dire this witness.
All right, you can proceed.
Thank you much. So, Dr. Rogers, have you testified as an expert witness before?
No.
Have you given technical advice to various companies?
Yes.
What companies have you given technical advice to?
Oh, sorry. No, I meant no to that question. I'm so sorry.
All right. Have you given technical advice to any advisory boards before?
No.
All right. Have you given technical advice to any regulatory agencies before?
No.
All right. You mentioned that you worked for a chemical company before?
Yes.
What is the name of this company?
It doesn't say in my witness statement.
All right. Do you have any medical experience?
No.
Have you worked at any hospitals?
Objection, Your Honor. I don't understand the relevance of this question and how it can relate to the topics I'm trying to enter my witness as.
So that's your objection. Relevance, I guess. Mr. Kaiser?
Your Honor, the questions I'm asking the witness about are about their work experience and why they should have any ability to comment on Drufo and its effects on the human body.
Anything further, Ms. Milner?
Yes. So he's asking if Dr. Rogers has worked at a hospital, and this doesn't include any of this isn't included in any of the topics I'm trying to enter Dr. Rogers as a witness in.
Well, it could if she did have that background. I suppose the answer is no, but that's of course not the only basis for somebody to be qualified as an expert. I'll overrule it and allow the question. We'll take the answer.
All right. Dr. Rogers, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes.
Have you worked at any hospitals?
No.
How long have you been studying the effects of chemicals on the human body for?
Can you repeat that question?
How long have you been studying the effects of chemicals on the human body for?
I don't believe that's in my witness statement.
Okay then. How long have you been studying the effects of Drufo for?
Around 2 years.
All right. Your Honor, the defense objects to this witness being qualified as an expert in toxicology and entomology. The witness's work experience is not only vague, but also lacking.
Well, your response, Ms. Milner?
I would say that Dr. Rogers does have experience in entomology and agriculture, based off their degrees in college and then their current work.
Well, perhaps you can lay some further foundation on her credentials, then I'll rule.
Okay. Dr. Rogers, could you please repeat what school you're employed at?
I heard the first time. I said, is there anything else you want to add?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Well, to strike this witness would of course ruin the whole competition, but the evidentiary or experience of this witness is rather weak. However, there is sufficient knowledge, skill, experience, and training, as well as formal education to provide opinions in this area. So I'll allow the expert to testify as an expert.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, how common is non-Hodgkin lymphoma due to exposure to Drufo?
Well, Dakota's not the only person to develop non-Hodgkin's lymphoma due to exposure to Drufo.
So you have done a study on Drufo. Could you tell us what the results of your study were?
Well, the study found that individuals with prolonged exposure to Drufo had many negative effects. And these effects include serious health conditions, which include cancer and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, compared to the control group of people who had little to no contact or exposure to Drufo, whereas these people had no negative side effects.
And could you tell us what non-Hodgkin lymphoma is?
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a type of cancer that affects the white blood cell called lymphocytes. It's part of the immune system. Lymphoma can start anywhere that contains lymph tissue and spreads throughout the body.
And how can someone get non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma develops in different ways, such as absorption through skin or inhaling particles.
And what group in your study had an increase in serious health conditions?
The group that had an increase in serious health conditions was the group with prolonged exposure to products with Drufo, such as farmers and gardeners.
Would you say that Dakota Weir's level of exposure related to the groups in your study?
Yes. Dakota was exposed almost daily with the Drufo product as she worked for Haven Landscaping, who used Lush's product. Her environment is similar to those of gardeners and farmers, which is the group from my study with very negative effects from Drufo.
And what is the most common way of getting exposed to Drufo?
There are many ways, such as absorption through skin, but the most common is exposed by breathing.
And what recommendations are there that should be taken to reduce exposure to Drufo?
Long sleeves, long pants, and a protective face mask.
What requirements or warnings are there for users of Lush fertilizer on the label?
There are no requirements, simply recommendations or warnings about negative effects.
And how many of Lush's products include Drufo?
Every single product.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, very well. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. So, Dr. Rogers, you mentioned a study that you did on Drufo comparing various workers who had and had not been exposed to the chemical. Is there an exhibit where we can see this study?
Yes, there is. Actually, no, there isn't. Sorry.
All right. Is it true that you compared farm laborers and casual gardeners in the study?
Yes, there is. Yeah.
And the farm laborers had been exposed to the chemical?
Yes.
And the gardeners had not?
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't farm laborers and casual gardeners have different jobs?
Yes.
Moving on, has this study been peer reviewed?
No, it has not. It's been too early.
Has the study been replicated?
No, it has not.
You mentioned that Dakota Weir's has an aggressive form of cancer.
He does.
What stage of cancer does Dakota Weir's have?
I don't know.
Is it true that you reviewed the documents for this trial?
Yes.
And these include Dakota's medical records?
Yes.
Shouldn't you know what stage of cancer Dakota has?
I should.
All right. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Is plaintiff rest?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Let's have the first witness ready.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Miss Blake Doncourt to the stand.
Very well.
Hello, Miss Doncourt. Could you please state your name and spell the last for the record?
Yes, hello. I'm Blake Doncourt, Doncourt.
And what is your involvement in the case?
I'm the CEO of Lush Fertilizer.
What is Lush Fertilizer?
Lush Fertilizer is a fertilizer company and is actually one of the largest in the world.
How long have you been working at Lush Fertilizer?
I have been working and helping the company grow since 2000.
And how successful has the company been?
The company has been very successful, and we have been able to put some money and donate to charities and help with the decrease in the global nitrogen footprint.
How successful have you personally been?
I personally have won numerous awards for my efforts and have been nominated for the United Nations Champion of the Earth Award.
Has your company had success with any major products?
Yes, our largest product is Lush Fertilizer, and it is used by various people from businesses to governments.
Are you aware of why Dakota Weirs is bringing a negligence claim upon your company?
Yes, Dakota Weirs believes that our product caused them to get cancer.
And was Lush a direct cause for this cancer?
No, Lush was never part of the disease pathology, and we never would have been if we knew it was harmful.
Are you directly aware of any dangers associated with a Lush Fertilizer product?
No, and if there were any, I would know. This product took years of research and development to even develop, and nothing was identified as a risk.
Okay, so how extensive was this research?
As I said, it was extremely extensive. We spent years of research and development on our product attempting to identify a risk.
And in relation to those risks, did anyone else find any risks associated with the product?
No, our toxicology department did not, and neither did the EPA. Nothing would require a warning label.
And could you clarify what the EPA is real quick?
It's the Environmental Protection Agency, right?
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to check that was the same EPA that was being referred to. So in relation to these studies, was there any study done outside of Lush and the EPA?
The only study I'm aware of is the one that Casey Rogers claimed to do, but it was never scientifically published until the trial came up.
And to move on to a bit of a separate topic, are you aware of a person named Carson Durst?
Yes, Carson used to work at my company, Lush Fertilizer.
And what was their job while at your company?
Carson worked on the research and development team for Lush and was able to learn trade secrets and gain training from the company itself.
Do you respect Mr. Durst's work for you while at your company?
As a matter of fact, I don't. Carson did many things that I do not agree with, including making claims, and left the company for our biggest competitor.
And what exactly constituted the claims that were made?
Carson claims that our research and development reports were written to seem like we weren't doing anything wrong, which we never were. Those same reports told me that there were no dangers at all with the product, especially not linked to cancer.
Okay. Could Ms. Durst have made these claims while at your company?
Yes, Carson's job was to, as a part of the research and development team, was to find any dangers or risks that we could follow up on to make our product even safer.
But did she bring any of these risks up while at your company?
No, not in the reports.
Okay. Do you hold any agreement between Ms. Durst and your company?
Yes, our company held a non-disclosure agreement with Carson Durst.
And is this an official document?
Yes, it's the official non-compete agreement for our company.
Your Honor, permission for my co-counsel to screen share the exhibit?
Sure.
So, Ms. Doncourt, what do you see in front of you right now?
I see Lush Fertilizer's non-compete agreement.
Is this the document as you know it?
Yes, it is.
And is there any officiality to the document?
Yes, it is official for our company.
Has this document been changed or altered?
No.
And co-counsel, could you go to the second page of this exhibit with the signatures? So is that first signature your signature?
Yes, it is.
And the second one is Carson Durst's signature as you know it?
Yes.
Your Honor, the defense moves for Exhibit 5 to be entered into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, I'm not sure how Carson's agreement or any has anything to do with proving that Dakota Weirs was not, or that Lush Fertilizer was not negligent for Dakota Weirs' non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Response?
It was clarified earlier that Ms. Durst worked with Drufo specifically, and Drufo is the agent in the product in question in relation to if Ms. Durst did or did not, or Ms. Weirs, apologies, did or did not contract non-Hodgkin lymphoma from the product. And this document is relating directly to Carson and the work on while at the company in relation to Drufo.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You can.
Thank you. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure how Carson's agreement with Lush has anything to do with proving that they were not negligent.
Any response to that?
Yeah, just briefly. This document is also setting a foundation for not only Lush Fertilizer's credibility, but Carson Durst's credibility while at the company, and is relating back to the claims that Carson Durst made after leaving the company of Lush Fertilizer.
All right, it doesn't seem to be directly related to negligence, but it's certainly related to credibility and perhaps more importantly to bias of the witness, which is always an issue to be considered. So, well, it's a good objection. It's overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And
Co-counsel. Oh, thank you, Your Honor. Co-counsel, could you go back to the first page and could you zoom in on what I believe it's part 2, the non-disclosure covenant reads as? And Ms. Doncourt, are you able to read that?
Yes, I am.
Could you please read it for us?
The employee will not at any time or any manner, either directly or indirectly, divulge, disclose, reveal, or communicate any trade secret belonging to Lush to any third party, included but not limited to any competitor of Lush.
Thank you. And co-counsel, you could take down the document now. So, Ms. Doncourt, have you heard of the new Terra Greenery product that is being released?
Yes, they're releasing a product extremely
relevance. I'm not quite sure what Terra's Greenery has to do with what Terra's Greenery is doing with their products has anything to do with what Lush is doing with theirs.
Well, we're not really here to satisfy your curiosity, your objections to relevance, the response.
So, Your Honor, this is going on the same line of questioning as the exhibit that was presented. So, how it was previously overruled because it relates to Carson Durst's credibility. This is just a question setting up foundation for the next question, which directly relates to Carson Durst's credibility.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right, well, subject to linking this together, I'll overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Ms. Doncourt, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
So, have you heard of the new Terra Greenery product being released?
Yes, they're releasing a product extremely similar to ours, but they're saying it's safer and carcinogenic free.
So, from your knowledge of both the non-disclosure agreement that's marked as Exhibit 5 and the new Terra Greenery product being released, would you believe that Carson Durst is breaking the agreement?
Without a doubt. Carson claims that he's acting as a whistleblower, but he's just using the training that Lush gave him to profit Terra's.
Okay. In this trial, are you aware of any other things that Miss Dakota Weir's attorneys are accusing you of?
Yes, they're accusing me of of not properly treating our fertilizer by baking it. But Lush does not need to bake our fertilizers because it's simply overkill. Because as I said before, there's no valid evidence that links Lush to any cancers.
Do you have any ill will towards Dakota in this trial?
No, I feel terrible that Dakota caught non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And if you knew that your product was harmful, would you still have released it to the market?
I nor Lush would ever cause any environmental or health harm.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes or no? Your son was best friends with Carson Durst.
Yes.
And you helped Carson get a job at your family's fertilizing company?
Yes.
And you and Lush Fertilizer Incorporated would have wanted to do extensive research on your fertilizer before putting it on the market, correct?
Yes.
And that is for the safety of families, corporations, and every lawn that it is put onto?
Yes, it is.
And that is for the safety of families. Oh, and that is for the safety of anybody walking near or on those lawns?
Yes.
That is for the safety of anybody using the fertilizer, including your employees?
Yes.
And the safety of our entire community?
Yes.
And in this research, it presented no harm to humans that used your product, correct?
No, it did not.
You claim that you knew nothing in Drufo that could have caused anyone harm, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I ask that co-counsel present Exhibit 4.
All right, I believe we already admitted that.
Objection, Your Honor. I'm not seeing any relevance for Exhibit 4 being presented to Blake Doncourt because Blake Doncourt did not send the email, nor was in any part of the email that is being mentioned now. Because we established earlier that Miss Jering Langley was the person that shared or sent the email.
Well, she's a recipient of it, so certainly she has knowledge of it. I'll have to see what the question is, and then we'll find out if that's relevant. Go ahead.
Your name is in the sent to box, correct?
Yes.
Could you please read the first sentence of paragraph 2 to the court, please?
Following our lab's June Drufo study, concerns have arisen regarding generalized findings of potential cardiogenic qualities identified in samples produced during a period early in the year.
So with your name being in the sent to box and that sentence that you just read to the court, you're still going to testify that you don't know anything about Drufo being carcinogenic in humans?
No, because if there was any risk, we would have followed up on it with tests.
Could you answer the question though, please?
Can you ask it again?
Of course. So with your name in the sent to box and the sentence that you had just read aloud for the court, you are still going to testify that you believe that, or you knew nothing of Drufo being carcinogenic in humans?
Yes.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, please, Your Honor. May I continue with that? Okay. So, Ms. Doncourt, how extensive was the research on the product again?
Very extensive. There was years of research put into our product.
And was there any harm that was associated with finding it? Or any harm associated with it that was found?
No.
And that's in the years of research.
Yes, there was nothing found in the years of research.
So would this product have been released if any knowledge was found of it?
No, as I said, Lush would never want to cause environmental or health harm to anyone.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any recross?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Next witness for defense.
I would like to call Skylar Weirs to the stand.
All right. You can proceed.
Okay. Skylar, can you state your name and spell it for the record?
Skylar Weirs.
Skylar, can you?
Skylar Weirs. SKYLERWEIRS.
Okay. What is your occupation?
Sorry. I'm a writer for a magazine called The Rationalist.
What is The Rationalist?
It's a science education and advocacy magazine.
What kind of articles do you write at The Rationalist magazine?
Usually ones that promote scientific skepticism, and a lot of them are about agriculture.
What do you do to write an article at said magazine company?
I'm sorry, can you please restate the question?
What do you do typically to write an article at the magazine company?
I usually spend about a year researching the topic. I look at various websites, I look at various agri-tech companies, things like that, and then I just start writing.
Did you apply such a process to your article on DURFO?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, the defense moves for Skylar Weirs to be admitted as an expert in agricultural technology.
Any objection or voir dire?
Yes, Your Honor, I would like to voir dire.
Go ahead.
So Mr. Weirs, is it true that your article, sorry, let me repeat the question. Is it true that your magazine has written articles about irrational beliefs and scientific skepticism?
No.
Objection relevance?
Well, it's voir dire, so I'm letting it go.
Yeah, sorry.
Then could you further explain what your magazine writes about?
Like I said earlier, it promotes scientific skepticism and various other things.
So the word skepticism means it is not like completely proven, correct?
Yes.
Okay, no further question, Your Honor.
Any further objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. And what is this witness qualified as an expert in?
In agricultural technology.
All right, seems like a stretch, but there's no objection. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Skylar, what sources did you use to write your article on DURFO?
The United States Department of Agriculture and the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture.
From your in-depth research, can you tell us if Lush fertilizer itself has any benefits?
Yes, it actually only needs to be applied 1 to 2 times a year, while other companies need to be applied 5 to 6 times. And because of the use of DURFO, which is a bonding agent, and it's a preservative, it helps hold everything intact. It keeps the nitrogen from contaminating the soils.
Okay. Would you say that Lush Fertilizer is dedicated to decreasing nitrogen contamination?
Yes, they donate 10% of their annual profits to reducing nitrogen contamination.
What has Blake Doncourt himself done to help decrease contaminant?
He started a charity to help clean up the Gulf of Mexico from nitrogen in the water from the overuse of other fertilizers that didn't have quite as an effective of a bonding agent as Drufo.
What links are there between Drufo and cancer?
No studies have shown a link between Drufo and cancer. Drufo actually protects its customers by preventing and eliminating exposure to known carcinogens such as glyphosate.
Okay. And what greater implications does this case have on big fertilizer, would you say?
Cases like this aren't the first ones that have tried to undermine agritech companies. The Monsanto company, the old guard of agritech sector, set a misinformation campaign to try and put businesses like this out of business. Lush Fertilizer is being targeted by other companies since their product could be revolutionary.
Objection, Your Honor, narrative.
Okay.
Your response to the narrative.
So essentially, this, what?
Your objection to your response to the objection to a narrative answer there.
Yes, and my response to the objection to narrative is being that this applies not only to how the case itself is being run, but also to the fact that Dakota Weirs is not, in fact, pursuing any other fertilizer company and is, in fact, supported by other fertilizer companies that stand to benefit highly from this case proceeding.
I don't know what that has to do with being a narrative. On the other hand, I don't think the last answer was particularly beyond the scope of the question, so overruled. Next question.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Mr. Weirs, isn't it true that you were assigned to research Drufo as part of a series from your editor?
Yes.
And your editor writes about scientific skepticism.
Yes, they do.
And during your research, isn't it true that you found that Drufo was a breakthrough for Lush and could cost millions to find an alternative?
Yes, it is true.
Do you think it's possible to make a fertilizer that is truly safe?
I don't think there's any way to make a fertilizer that is truly safe.
Okay. Your only real proof that Drufo is not harmful is the fact that you haven't found any studies that talk directly about the effects. So just because you haven't found anything on the topic doesn't mean that there's nothing there.
I'm sorry, I guess I don't understand the question.
So your only real evidence that Drufo isn't harmful is that you haven't found any studies directly related to the effects of Drufo. But just because you haven't found any evidence or proof doesn't mean that there's nothing there, correct?
Yes.
Drufo is eliminating the amount of nitrogen and other pesticides in its products by using Drufo.
Yes, Lush is doing that.
But you think that there's a link with other pesticides and cancer more so than a link with Drufo?
Yes, I do.
And you have grass allergies, correct?
Yeah.
So the only difference you and Dakota had growing up is that he worked outside with pesticides, correct?
That would be correct.
And while you are healthy, he is sick with cancer.
Yes, that would also be correct.
Do you have a gambling problem?
Yes, I do.
And are the funds from your father that could be helping you with your gambling debt going
Objection,
to Dakota
relevance.
instead?
Objection to relevance, your response.
I would say this is relevant because it is talking about where the money from Skylar and Dakota's father is going towards and could put a bias on Skylar Weirs.
All right, response to that, if any?
The father of Skylar and Dakota Weirs has nothing currently to do with the actual proceedings of this trial and is in fact not even a witness in this trial. Therefore, the actions of their father should remain outside of the trial.
Well, it seems like it goes directly to the bias of this witness, so overruled.
Do you believe that your father will still help Dakota financially even if the lawsuit isn't successful?
Yes, I do.
Okay, moving on. Was it recommended that Dakota wear protective gear?
Yes, it was.
And those were recommendations stated as a recommendation rather than a warning.
Yes, that was a recommendation.
Do you believe Dakota could have developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma due to past work with fertilizers?
Yes, I do believe so.
But he recently developed the cancer, correct?
Yes.
And Lush is the only fertilizer that he has been working with in the past 4 years?
As far as I know, yes.
And is it true that Lush is the only fertilizer to use Drufo?
Yes, that is correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes. Skylar, am I correct in saying that you researched for a year at least to discover if Drufo in fact contained any carcinogenic elements?
Objection, Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered. I believe this question was asked earlier.
Well, your response?
This question is a more in-depth question based off of the previous question, as this answer goes further into the actual time spent on the research and development rather than the overall research and development of many topics, as that was the prior question in how it was pertained.
Well, you had your chance to do that on direct. It wasn't covered in cross, so it's outside the scope of cross. So sustained, move on. Limit your questions to what was raised on cross.
Well, essentially, this question was to...
Don't argue. Next question.
Anyway, that is all.
All right. Thank you. Next witness for the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Dr. Devin Williams to the stand.
All right. You can proceed.
All right. Hello there, doctor. Can you state your name and spell it for the record?
Devin Williams, Williams.
What is your current occupation?
I lead the research and development labs at Lush Fertilizer, and I am the outgoing chair of ethics committee.
What is your current work experience?
I've worked at Lush for roughly a decade now, and I've led the toxicology and for research and development labs for 7 years.
Do you have any other relevant experience?
My education from undergraduate to PhD was completed at the Colorado State University in Fort Collins. I did a specialized post-PhD program in pharmacotoxicology at the University of Utah.
Do you hold any accreditations?
I do. I hold certificates in Wyoming, Utah, New Mexico, and Colorado. I've also published a number.
That's what those certifications are in.
Pharmacotoxicology and pharmacotoxicology.
Thank you.
Do you have anything that would let us see this?
Yes, I brought my CV with me today. It lists off my PhD and my other accreditations.
All right. Your Honor, I request to present what's been marked as exhibit number 9.
All right.
Co-counsel, can you screen share exhibit number 9? Okay, so let the record reflect on showing opposing counsel a clean and unmarked copy of exhibit number 9. So Dr.
Go ahead.
All right, so Dr. Williams, what exactly is on your CV?
My various accreditations, including my education, my various work experience, and my other published works.
Does this include your certificates?
It does.
Is this an accurate reflection of your education and work experience?
It is.
Is this your CV as you know it?
It is.
Your Honor, the defense moves for Dr. Williams' CV to be admitted as exhibit number 9.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, number 9's received.
All right. Your Honor, the defense requests for Dr. Williams to be admitted as an expert in pharmacology and toxicology.
Any objection or voir dire?
No, Your Honor. I just request that the witness stay within their level of expertise.
All right, very well.
All right, so Dr. Williams, let's start from the beginning. How'd you get your start at Lush Fertilizer?
I started as a technician, but I have been leading the research and development labs for 7 years now.
What is Drufo?
Drufo is a binding agent that binds nitrates to the fertilizer, which prevents nitrogen runoffs, which are bad for the environment.
Why are nitrogen runoffs bad?
Well, unused nitrogen is turned into nitrates by soil bacteria. These nitrates are then carried off by irrigation runoff or rainfall into streams or lakes or other bodies of water, and they create algae blooms, which eat up the oxygen in the water, killing the fish. And these algae blooms can harbor harmful bacteria to humans.
If Drufo is so helpful, how come it's not more widely used in the world?
The European Union banned it.
Why did the European Union ban it?
Well, if you put Drufo in a petri dish and then add the right soil bacteria, you'll get just as many nitrates as with regular fertilizer. So they banned it under their nitrates directive. And so the European Union uses this unrealistic process, instead of using realistic tests that actually happen in nature. This creates inaccurate results that allege Drufo does not work.
Why is Drufo banned in some places outside the European Union?
Well, these places lack the infrastructure to really do their own tests on products. So they follow the EU's example as they have the infrastructure set up.
Does the US use such a means of testing fertilizer?
No, thankfully the US tests what actually happens in nature.
If these tests are so inaccurate, how come Lush Fertilizer did not try to fight these results?
Lush theoretically could have fought these results. However, at the time, we were a budding company and we had limited resources. So we made the decision it was easier to sell a brand of fertilizer that didn't contain Drufo.
And Dr. Rogers claims that people exposed to Drufo experience higher rates of cancer. Are these claims substantiated?
No. The use of Drufo has not been correlated with a statistically significant increase in the incidence of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or any other cancer. Why am I not saying it doesn't cause cancer? Because that's not how science works. If you take a large group of people, a small number of them will develop non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's any large group of people.
How can the elevated rates of cancer in the study be explained?
These rates are nothing but sheer coincidence. I'm going to use an analogy to explain them. Say I have a pile of red and blue jelly beans equal parts. If I randomly pull 10 jelly beans, it is exceedingly unlikely I'll pull 5 red and 5 blue. It's just as likely I'll pull 10 red jelly beans and 0 blue jelly beans.
Are there any other issues with this study?
It's not been peer reviewed. It's unable to be replicated as so far. And the study is a comparison of farm laborers who use Drufo versus casual home gardeners.
What is peer review?
Peer review is a process of a study being reviewed by scientists not involved in the study to guarantee that there was no bias or that the study just wasn't falsely made or poorly done.
All right. Why is the inability to replicate the study as well as the outcome of the study an issue?
The ability for a study to be replicated and achieve the same results shows that the study is unbiased and free of errors. And I mean, so many are filled with flaws in the common error of science.
My apologies. Could you say that again?
The ability for a study to be replicated and achieve the same results shows that the study is unbiased and free of errors.
All right. Rewinding a bit, why is the comparison between farm laborers and casual gardeners an issue?
Farm laborers and casual gardeners have different jobs and just completely different lifestyles. Farm laborers are fundamentally exposed to more types of fertilizers than the everyday casual home gardener would be. A flower bed is not the same as a cornfield. It's comparing apples to oranges.
Overall, what is your reaction to this case?
It's terribly tragic. This lawsuit is just misguided. I truly do feel bad for Dakota Weirs, and my heart goes out to him. However, there is no substantial evidence to prove that Drufo caused his cancer.
What is your expert opinion on Drufo?
It is a completely safe and beneficial product that is great for the environment. It has no carcinogenic effects.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. You worked at Lush Fertilizer for 10 years,
Yeah,
and you were first hired as a lab technician.
I was.
This was because the turnover was affecting production.
Objection, relevance.
Relevance?
I'm sorry, I can withdraw the question.
All right.
I realize that there is no way. Dr. Devin Williams, when you were promoted to lead the labs, it was to oversee work on environmental impacts, correct?
It was.
Your boss also put you in charge of keeping Drufo products industry-leading, cost-effective, and environmentally aware.
He did. Or she
The
did.
goal of Drufo, the goal of Drufo was to decrease the nitrate runoff into bodies of water,
It was.
but it doesn't do this in lab conditions, which you're supposed to be testing to see if the product is actually
It does
effective.
in nature and with realistic testing. The European Union used an unrealistic test of what doesn't happen in nature.
But it was banned in the EU because it didn't replicate this in lab conditions, correct?
Yes, because it produced too much nitrogen with the right bacteria.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Is the study done by Dr. Rogers flawed?
It is.
Is the European Union ban on Drufo misguided?
It is.
Is no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any recross on light of that?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, very well, thank you. Defense rest?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense rests their case.
Okay, very well. Are we ready to proceed with closing arguments?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, plaintiff can proceed.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for your undivided attention on a case as important as this one. When dealing with something that can cause both harm to the environment and to the people that live in it, it is vital to be careful and considerate when coming to a decision. Today, you've heard from a variety of witnesses from both sides. From the defense, you heard from Dr. Devin Williams, an expert in multiple fields of toxicology who spent the last decade working for a company that he cares about. He cares about its well-being and will happily follow the instructions of their boss if it means that the company will succeed. You've heard from Skylar Weirs, an investigative journalist who happens to be Dakota's twin. They're testifying because they believe that Lush Fertilizer is totally safe, something they've researched extensively. But they've also researched and written about UFOs, flat earth theory, chemtrails, and anti-vax culture. Finally, you heard from Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, a person who cares only about the cheapest manufacturing prices, who doesn't mind going around the system if it might be beneficial. Someone who simply cares more about her trade secrets than her employees, who works hard and is just as dedicated to help the company succeed. Then, from the plaintiff, you've heard from Dakota Weirs, an ill girl who has lost any hope of recovering or chasing her dreams. She's been struck down by a terrible ailment, losing the final connection to her deceased grandfather, someone who she loved more than anything. Then you heard from Carson Durst. While she may be a scorned employee, she was still an employee, one that was particularly close to the CEO. She was someone who was able to see all the workings of the company and speak about it without breaching the non-disclosure agreement. Finally, you listened to Dr. Casey Rogers, a teacher and researcher who happens to be new to the courtroom. She chose to lend her expertise to the plaintiff, hoping to help the greater good. My client, Dakota Weirs, is only 20 years old. With so much life ahead of her, she has recently lost the ability to complete basic tasks without feeling the aches and pains of the illness that has taken over her life. Additionally, she lost the ability to contribute to her community, something that she happily let consume most of her time. Ms. Weirs is an honest member of society who loved helping out those in need, and her contributions to the world around her will be severely missed until she can make a recovery, if she can make a recovery. One of the most devastating things Dakota Weirs lost when she was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma was her ability and talent for the piano. It was her connection to her grandfather, who passed away many years ago when she was only a young girl. On top of that, Miss Weirs had to turn down a full-ride scholarship to Juilliard, one of the most prestigious music schools in the country. She felt that in her condition, she wouldn't be able to keep up with its rigorous program. While Juilliard has allowed her to defer her scholarship for 2 years, and while her doctor believes that she'll be able to make a full recovery, Miss Weirs doesn't think she'll ever be able to live her life as it was before. For someone who should have so many more things to learn and experience, it's truly tragic. Take a moment and put yourself in my client's shoes. Imagine what it feels like to be in Dakota's position, sick, weak, hopeless, and alone. If you saw all that evidence stacking up in one direction, if your father helped aid you in your findings, I'm certain that you too would have no doubts in what caused your agony. This is why my client has taken this matter to court today, to not only get justice for herself, but to make sure that Lush Fertilizer is stopped before this happens to anyone else. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I come to you today to ask you that you take into consideration everything that you've learned when you come to a verdict. I ask you to consider how you'd feel if you or a loved one were in Dakota's position, up against a jury, hoping that they're able to see the truth in the matter. I ask that you hold this company, its CEO, and its dangerous products accountable. Once again, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. The defense.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the house that the plaintiff has built out of this case has cracks inside of the foundation. The plaintiff needed to provide a preponderance of evidence that Lush Fertilizer is at fault and was negligent for Miss Dakota Weir's contracting non-Hodgkin lymphoma from their product, Lush Fertilizer. They are also alleging that Lush Fertilizer hid or ignored any dangers that studies revealed. So in this case, the jury cannot find a preponderance of evidence needed to show that Lush Fertilizer is at fault and failed to properly warn users about dangers. So in this negligence claim, there are 4 aspects to it that need to be proved. These aspects are a duty, a breach of that duty, causation, and damages. What the defense has been able to show through their case is that Lush Fertilizer had a duty to protect people and the environment and to make sure that their product was safe. They never breached that duty as their product was safe enough to put on the market, and the studies done did not bring up plentiful concerns about harm. In this case, you heard from 6 witnesses, 3 from the plaintiff and 3 from the defense. To start, Ms. Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, was able to exhibit the company's protecting people and the environment by creating a safe product. Blake has always strived to make the world a better place for all. And to do this, the company needed to use Drufo. Lush carried out their duty by testing the product themselves, with those tests being well within federal standards for law, affirmed by Ms. Carson Durst. Mr. Skylar Weirs, an expert witness and an investigative journalist, was able to show or affirm how much safer Drufo was than practically all other fertilizers and pesticides, and how Lush Fertilizer was able to protect consumers by eliminating exposure to carcinogenic agents while also protecting the environment. Dr. Devin Williams, an expert witness in pharmacology and toxicology, was able to explain why the EU banned Drufo. They banned it because of insufficient studies done that just did not replicate natural conditions, not because of concerns for cancer risk, just concerns over the nitrates produced. He also explained how Drufo was not correlated with an increase in non-Hodgkin lymphoma or any cancer. If you take a group of people, some of them are going to get sick. That doesn't mean the fertilizer caused it. In Dr. Devin Williams' study, he compared fertilizers to fertilizers, or apples to apples. Dr. Casey Rogers, on the other hand, a witness with an unreliable study, compared farmers to gardeners to normal people, apples to oranges. This is a completely irrelevant way to go about a study, one that was not even brought for you, the jury, to see, and one that was not peer-reviewed. Dr. Casey Rogers' knowledge of the case and expertise was also extremely vague and was barely qualified as an expert. Going on to another witness, Ms. Carson Durst found little evidence to help prove the plaintiff's case, as most of the evidence pointed to the safety of the product, with the only unsafe element being a possible carcinogen in rats. Ms. Durst also went against the company agreement, potentially revealing Lush Fertilizer's trade secrets to Terrace Greenery, where they now work, all because they got mad at Ms. Doncourt and were fired by Lush. Finally, we rest to look at Ms. Dakota Weirs. Ms. Weirs did not take proper precautions while using the product by not wearing the proper protective gear that was advised, not only by Lush, but by Haven Landscaping, even if it wasn't required. Ms. Weirs did not use any trustworthy sources in their research, as all information they found were gathered from a news link, which could easily be false, and from Google. As you can see, Lush was able to fulfill its duty to protect people and the environment, and didn't do anything that would harm anyone, anything that would injure anyone, anything that would hurt a person and their lifestyle. The cracks inside the foundation will bring the whole house down one day or another, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, It's your job and responsibility to decide if today is that day. Ms. Weirs, Lush Fertilizer and the defense are pained to see you in the state that you are in, and of how terrible of an occurrence this was. We are sending our hearts out to you and wishing you a safe and speedy recovery. However, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you cannot find Lush Fertilizer negligent because they did everything done to ensure safety for the environment, but most especially for people like yourself. Thank you.
Any rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. While the defense has brought up many interesting and good points, I'd like to remind you all that Ms. Weirs chose not to wear the protective equipment on the packaging. It was stated to be required, not mandatory. She chose not to because no one should have to take such extreme precautions when participating in an activity known to be relaxing. The need of a respirator when gardening is fatuous and should not be necessary, especially on hot summer days. Additionally, it was very inexpensive for Lush to not bake their products, but upon baking their products, it could have saved a whole lot of pain and suffering. Thank you.
Thank you. We could all give you all a hand, but I'll do it since you can hear me. So very well done. Thank you. We'll let our scoring panelists catch up on their scoring. I have to do one too, but let me give you a few of my comments first. I mean, y'all did a good job. Y'all knew your roles. You knew the scripts very well. I'll just go through quickly a few things that are good and could be still improved on for your next rounds. I mean, I wouldn't tell you this in the fourth round or the third round because you wouldn't be able to change things. Here you can kind of try some things out in the next round. You can think about some things overnight. First of all, Stephen King, you probably know who that is, the mystery writer. He's got a great saying. He's got a whole book called On Writing. It tells you about how he writes. If you're at all interested in writing, or if you're a lawyer or even a judge, it's a great place to go to look to a different kind of writing. And he always says, murder your darlings. What that means is get rid of those favorite phrases that you like that we all attach to. I write judicial opinions every day, and I come up with these sentences and I go, wow, that is great. But then I have to realize maybe that doesn't fit here. Maybe that should go in my next opinion, or Stephen King thinks it should go in another book or a different place. So, you know, less can be more. I mean, especially the plaintiff's closing, you had a lot of information because this is a complex case. Maybe pare it down, give yourself a chance to breathe. I mean, tons of information coming at you like a fire hose isn't particularly convincing of anything. So I would try to get it down to more quality, you know, type things than just trying to absolutely cover everything. You don't have to cover everything. We just heard it all. Your point of closings is maybe to emphasize those things you want, not to tell us everything we just heard. If any of you are music students, I'm a musician, and you learn the pauses are just as important as the notes. So maybe there's something to kind of learn there. One thing I would say also, and I'm not picking on the plaintiff's closing because it was really well done, but you made lawyers cringe and you'll make all judges cringe by using what we call the golden rule argument. It's a no-no. The golden rule argument is put yourself in the client's shoes. How would you feel? You did it twice. That would draw screaming objections in an actual trial. So I only tell you that because even if you don't draw an objection in a later round, you are making your scorekeepers go, ooh, that hurts. So that's may not be something you actually learn. I'm just trying to give you the reality of things. So that will make make the ears kind of cringe like fingers on a chalkboard. That draws an immediate objection. Life would be easier for plaintiffs' lawyers if you could say, imagine you had this, or, you know, we're not allowed to do that. So mentioning the burden of proof, that was a great idea by the defense. That always is good for both sides to mention burden of proof, because in reality, that's what you're asking everyday jurors to do, is go weigh things out. And they often don't have that experience in their life. They're not used to doing that. So explaining the burden of proof and what it is in a civil case, that it's different than a criminal case, is never particularly a waste of time. You're helping jurors with the task, you know, that they're going to go through. I'm looking at my jury box right now. They're going to go through that door into the jury room, and that's where they have to do that weighing. So it helps to have them thinking about that. The witnesses, you all did a great job. I would say one thing you could do to improve things is, and this doesn't take long. I mean, while you're taking your break or tonight, I mean, I would try to think about becoming that person, becoming an injured person who's going to die or can't, you know, live to their old age or do the activities they were used to doing. Or think about, you know, there are real scientists out there that look at these things and look for carcinogenics and things like that. Try to become that person and understand the gravity of what they're doing, and make those words become, you know, kind of like acting classes. You know, be that person. You know, we often see, and we had some of it here, but you see some of the witnesses, and as the scorekeeper, you look at them and you say, that guy's like the doctor, man. He's better than a doctor. Or that woman really feels that pain, or you know, whatever it might be. Think about becoming that person. You know, the guts of this case is about risk versus money. I mean, risk of human life versus, you know, money. I think it's a perfect case. Even in real cases, the best questions are the questions. What I tried to do as a lawyer, I was a lawyer 30 some years before I was a judge. And, you know, when you're tired of going through the facts, the things I would think about, like the night before trial or driving to the courthouse, can I ask a question that's kind of like a mic drop question? I don't care what the answer is. Whatever the answer is going to make the witness look terrible. And there's some great opportunities here. For example, I mean, I haven't thought a lot about this, but you know, is it responsible? You're trying to tell us what a responsible, environmentally responsible company you are. Is it responsible to ignore the input of Durst and Roberts and their information, or Rogers, their information? Is that responsible for a company to carry on when there's any risk that there's carcinogens? You don't care what the witness says. You know, they can't argue out of that. They're just going to have to go, oh, I don't know. I guess we probably should have thought about it, or they won't say anything. Another kind of question is, you did the minimum. You met the bare minimum governmental you know, requirements. Is that good enough when it comes to human life? I mean, who cares? Again, with the, you know, there is no good answer the witness can give in that situation. So maybe think about those things. Let's turn it over. Mary Jo, maybe you have some comments.
Well, putting yourself in someone else's shoes would not have made me go, because I never did litigation. I was a business attorney for 36 years. I'm retired now, so I'm probably like your normal juror off the street. The one thing I did notice, though, was, and I know this is really more difficult because we're doing this virtually, but I mean, try to hide your reading a little more, because I think that when it's obvious that you're reading, as the judge alluded to, you do tend to go faster. You don't pause. You know, there's less emotion. So try to hide that a little bit. I know that the temptation is great while you're on the computer to read. I'm just going to repeat something I heard in the last trial I helped with in mock trials, was on cross. I mean, it does get a little old when the attorney does not ask questions, but basically makes a statement like, right? Is that correct? Is that correct? To me, I know that it's okay to lead the witness, but I think it would be more effective if the point were made with a question rather than just a statement and then asking for affirmation that your statement is correct. Having said that, I thought that the witnesses really did hold up pretty well under cross. We had, I think it was Mr. Rowe at the beginning cautioned someone about gender, but everybody did it. Both teams did it, had mistakes about gender. Oddly enough, Mr. Rowe, I noticed that when you were questioning someone and referring to another party, you used the plural, which is fashionable now. I can't do it, I'm too old, but it worked. And but there were, I know that it's really difficult because people are changing roles, they're changing sides, but I think you really should try to pay attention to the gender of the witnesses. Having said all this, you know, great job. I couldn't have done this when I was in high school. Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Not much was expected of me. And if this had been, this wouldn't be something I would have chosen. So if it had been available. So kudos to you all. Good job.
Great. Nick, I'll get to you in just a second. A couple other things I thought of along the way. Just practical things that maybe you can apply or not. First of all, I knew I had these written down somewhere. The TV story, man, try to make that hearsay. That's hearsay all day long. At least try the objection. It may get in this format, but that's an easy objection to make, and you'll score points for it. Also, Skylar Weir is the first time I've ever seen a second expert, and I'm talking like 25, 30 years. I've been doing this since it started. So Skylar Weir, at least attack them as not being an expert. I literally had that this morning. I mean, I had in a real case, I had a doctor trying to tell me all this stuff. He testified about all kinds of stuff about accident reconstruction, and it was outside of his area of expertise. You can't acquire expertise by reading stuff. Yeah, you can get kind of smart off the internet about a particular topic, but you can't become an expert. You don't get that 10,000 hours, awarded to you from, looking at other resources. And finally, this is maybe directed a little bit to the plaintiffs. Think about redirect. I think almost all the judges will give you redirect. It's a great opportunity to clean something up. And it's also persuasive in that, it gives you recency. You've brought yourself back. Don't forget about our part of the story, even if it's just one question. So redirect can be very helpful. Nick, go ahead.
Thanks, Judge.
Nick was a child in my neighborhood. I know his father as a lawyer of my age. So Nick,
Yep.
have at it.
Yep. Good to see you, Judge. Yeah, the bottom line is, guys, right out of the gate, you had a civil case. You didn't have a criminal case. I know in mock trial, a lot of times everybody's kind of vying for the criminal case because they tend to be a little bit more exciting and interesting. But I think you guys overall did a really good job of making this compelling, making it about the pain and suffering, and then also the significance of the business. And these, civil cases are just as significant and important as our criminal ones in our justice system. So I want to start right off the bat by saying I think you guys did a good job of making this compelling from both sides. In terms of things that haven't already been mentioned, I'm sure your coaches have already said this to you guys. Don't be afraid to slow down. Take a beat after every question. Take a beat after every question is asked of you as a witness. You guys got through everything just fine. You were timely. You had plenty of time left over for the most part. So don't be afraid to slow down. And that ultimately ends up affecting how you educate your jury and your audience. And the judge was mentioning, music and cadences and the silence. Sometimes those silences and those cadences can be more important than the actual substance of what your next question will be. So just kind of keep that in mind, and always remind yourself, slow down. In fact, and one of the advantages now with everything being virtual, sometimes if I'm kind of nervous for a hearing, I'll actually write slow down or go slow on a sticky note and put it by my computer. And it's just something there to remind me when I'm in trial to just make sure I'm checking myself. Only other thing I wanted to mention was voir dire. Anytime you guys are diving in on an exhibit or an expert, make sure you know why you're doing it. Don't just do it for the sake, because Judge Stevens asked you or offered you the opportunity. Make sure that you really have a plan when you're going in there. Am I demonstrating that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or she is an expert? Is the foundation on this exhibit, or is this exhibit so far removed from this witness that it's going to be multi-layers of hearsay? Those are really helpful things to think about before you're jumping in on doing voir dire. But what Mary Jo said, I would completely agree with. There was no way I would be able to do this in high school. I'm not kidding. I could not have done any of this stuff in high school. So you guys should pat yourselves on the back.
And you're young.
And
You're young.
You're nice to say that. I'm 36 years old, but I don't feel
that's young.
that much. But yeah, absolutely. You guys really did an excellent job. And putting yourselves out there to do this kind of thing is not an easy thing to do. So congratulations on that. And to the extent any of you continue to have an interest in being a lawyer, continue to look into that. Continue to foster that. Talk to attorneys. You can start in high school to start clerking for law firms or judges, and just get your hands into the mix of this profession. And as you can see, there's a lot of different. Mary Jo was doing transactional and business work. Judge Stevens did litigation for a long time and joined the bench. And I've been doing litigation for 10 years now. So it's a profession that you don't even have to practice a day of law in your life, and it could still be a really fun and exciting experience for you. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks so much.
All right, the very important thing Nick just said is have fun during this tournament. Take a deep breath, think about this. It's exciting. Where else do you get to put yourself out there? Kind of like acting. You can rehearse the play all day long, but man, when you get an audience there, it's a whole different thing for any of you who have ever done that or tried to tell stand-up jokes or anything like that. It's a whole different deal. And this is the opportunity to really get those feelings. Oh, geez, because these will come in handy to you later. We had a lot of confidence from a lot of people. Keep carrying that on. That'll do you well. Let me wish you luck with the rest of the tournament. And one final thing, make sure, I know you all have people behind you, such as your parents, your siblings, who are sick of hearing about this story and sick of hearing you practice in front of a mirror. Thank those people, use them tonight, but make sure you thank them. So with that, good luck. We'll see y'all. Have a good weekend.
You as well.
Thank you, Your Honor. Great job, everyone.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.